What if I told you that wealth has nothing to do with money at first? That before you hold a single dollar in your hand, something far more important must change inside you. Because here's the hard truth. Wealth is not created by hustling harder or chasing opportunities. It is born the moment you change who you are at the deepest level of your identity. For years, I couldn't see this. Like most people, I blamed the economy, bad luck, lack of connections. I thought if only I worked harder, prayed louder, or got a little break, my life would turn around. But no amount of effort could outrun the silent identity I carried inside, the poor self. The poor self is tricky. It wears many masks. Sometimes it sounds humble, whispering that it's noble to struggle. Sometimes it hides in anger, insisting the system is rigged. And sometimes it pretends to be spiritual, claiming that desiring wealth is somehow wrong. What I didn't know back then was this. Until you confront the poor self, nothing outside will truly change. So let me tell you a story. A story about a man who taught me this lesson in a way I could never forget. His name was Abdullah. Abdullah wasn't an ordinary teacher. He was like a mirror for the soul. One look from him, and you felt he could read the secret thoughts you never admitted even to yourself. When I first met him, I was broke, scared, and drowning in excuses. He said something that day that burned into my mind forever. You must first find self, then change self. Nothing else will work. At first I didn't understand. Find self. What did that even mean? I thought I knew who I was. But he explained it like this. Most people live as strangers to themselves. They've built entire lives on top of unexamined beliefs. Beliefs about money, about worthiness, about what is possible. Those beliefs quietly run the show, keeping them locked in the same patterns year after year. And here's the kicker. You can't change what you refuse to see. So the first step, Abdullah said, was uncritical observation. Not judgment, not guilt. Just noticing. I started watching myself like a scientist. How did I feel when I saw someone driving an expensive car? How did I talk about money with friends? What stories did I tell myself about wealthy people? The results shocked me. Underneath my polite smile, I carried resentment toward success. I secretly believed rich people were selfish. I felt guilty even wanting money. And somewhere deep down, I assumed life was supposed to be hard. No wonder wealth never stayed. It had no home to live in inside my identity. Abdullah told me, your life only mirrors who you are, not what you beg for. That hit like a thunderclap, because I realized I'd been trying to manifest abundance while secretly living as the poor self. And the poor self always recreates poverty, no matter how many affirmations you say or vision boards you make. But Abdullah didn't stop there. He gave me the second step. After you find the poor self, you must let it die. Sounds dramatic, right? But think about it. If you keep identifying as the person who struggles, who doubts, who clings to lack, how can abundance flow through you? The old identity has to go. He called this closing the door. When you truly close the door on an old self, you stop negotiating with it. You stop running back to check if your new identity is working. You stop talking about the lack, analyzing it, or defending it. You live as the new self completely. Let me give you an example. One winter, I wanted to visit my family for Christmas. The problem? I had no money for the ticket. I told Abdullah I was imagining being there, but reality wasn't changing. He looked at me and said, "You are already in Barbados." Then he turned his back and slammed the door. Do you get it? The conversation was over. No room for doubt. In consciousness, it was already done. That night, I imagined myself in my family's home. I felt the humid air, heard their laughter, smelled the food. But more importantly, I refused to discuss my lack anymore. I closed the door. Days later, money arrived unexpectedly, along with a first-class ticket exactly as he had declared. Coincidence? Hardly. It was consciousness aligning with identity. This is where most people fail. They try to mix the old self with the new one. They affirm wealth in the morning, then complain about bills by noon. They visualize abundance, then argue for their limitations when reality tests them. Closing the door means no more divided energy. You live as the wealthy self now, but what if it feels fake at first? Abdullah said that's normal. Of course it feels strange. You're leaving behind an entire identity. But if you stay with it, something shifts. Your reactions start changing. See, the real proof isn't in forced positivity. It's in automatic reactions. When money comes up, do you tense with fear or relax in trust? When you see success, do you feel inspired or bitter? Those reflexes reveal who you really are inside. Over time, as the wealthy self takes root, you stop thinking about wealth as something out there. You start thinking from wealth as if it's the most natural thing in the world. Because for the new self, it is. One of Abdullah's other students proved this powerfully. He grew up facing discrimination and believed the world was stacked against him. But Abdullah made him start with self, not society. Slowly, he let the old identity of limitation die. Within 3 years, he went from barely surviving to earning $250,000 a year in the 1940s. That's the power of identity. So here's the question for you. Which self are you living from right now? Be honest. Are you secretly protecting the poor self with excuses, stories, and doubts? Or are you ready to close the door and live as someone new? Because at the end of the day, wealth is not something you chase. It's something you become. The money, the opportunities, the freedom, they all flow naturally once the identity shift is complete. This is why Abdullah's method still changes lives decades later. It's not about wishing harder. It's about identity mastery. Find the self-creating lack. Let it die. Close the door. Live as the wealthy self until it feels as real as breathing. Do this, and reality has no choice but to catch up. Because the world can only mirror the self you decide to be.